Good morning, zookeepers, and welcome back to Mesa Zoo. I hope you're having a really great morning or day, wherever time period you are or what point in the day you actually see this video. But today at Mesa Zoo, we are going to be making a reptile house. Well, they're stereotypically known as reptiles, but usually hold amphibians, invertebrates, fish, and things like this. Ours, in case, is going to be holding invertebrates, reptiles, and amphibians, because we don't have any fish. But nevertheless, I really did enjoy making this. I spent quite a while really making it, just trying to add a fair few details. There may be a little bit I could go back to and polish up on, a little bit on the future, but nevertheless, I was really happy with how this build kind of like turned out in the end. And I tried making it so it looked like it had support structures, made it look like it was a very simple, cheap building to put together, so it didn't cost too much. Also, getting materials on top of a Mesa is going to be quite difficult, especially it's probably going to have to be flown in via helicopter more than likely. Maybe you could have used a Skytram to get some of it up, but it might be a little bit too heavy to get those materials up there using the Skytram. So it's kind of one of those things where I was like, you know what, I need to kind of like put a bit of grasp to this build. It's not going to be an easy one in a sense if I use like massive low amounts of bricks and things. So to make this job easy and cheap for a reptile house, and it's you know it's nice and simple, and because I can kind of imagine it like reptile houses, like they are popular to a lot of animal lovers. But when you go to a zoo, a lot of time the reptile and invertebrate amphibian houses tend to be like overlooked. Like, I like them because they usually are quiet, so you get to spend a lot of time without having to worry that you're in the way of blocking someone's view or hogging that enclosure in that kind of sense, because not many people, like just the average person that goes to a zoo to just see the animals, not like a mega like lover of animals, they're not going to sit there and go, oh, that cockroach is cool, it's doing this, it's doing that, it's interacting with that member, it's interacting with its environment inside the enclosure. They're just going to go, that's a bug, and walk off usually. And that's why a lot of time you do see zoos kind of like, I know my local zoo, they got rid of their bug house in the invertebrate reptile area, and what they've done is like made little enclosures all around the zoo there that kind of fit in with those zones to hold those smaller animals. So yeah, it's kind of one of those things. So anyways, going back to the build, I wanted to make it somewhat simple. It was meant to be a simple kind of house, and it's got like the enclosures around the exhibits around the outside, like not too many of them pushed together. They've got space around them, and I just wanted it to be not too complicated inside. I end up going into a fair few like final details into all of the builds themselves. I have also added it to the workshop for people to have a nosy at. Now, so one thing I did want to introduce into this would be a garden in the middle. I can't remember which zoo I went to, but their reptile house had this massive garden in the middle of it, like tropical plants, had a few statues knocking about lots of different rocks, and I thought that was really cool. So this is my interpretation. I thought I found a reptile statue, so we're going to place that like center on the rocks and then have like a greenhouse roof above it. I really do like making greenhouse roofs. They're just, for me, they look really cool, and the fact it allows me to add a few tropical trees in there that aren't going to be sticking through the ceiling. I'm not going to have to bury the majority of them into the ground to get them, and it just adds like a really cool vibe. I go back to the like support structure because I feel like it needs support in the middle of the building, so I'm pretty sure the roof would not be able to handle too well in its current situation if I was just to leave it without any support beams. And I feel like it adds to the garden, it makes it look slightly closed off, even though technically I guess if they really wanted to could step over that wall and walk in that garden. You'd hope that they'd respect the garden and that wouldn't happen, but sometimes you do see crazy people do crazy things. So anyways, I just add like loads of tropical plants. I had quite a bit of fun with it really, just going through. I put on the tropical filter, and then I was like, you know what, I'm going to go through all these plants, see what I like the most of, and I sort of place them here and there, and they do go over. Like a lot of times plants just grow the way they want to grow, and if they get in the way, then that's just how the plants work. honestly, it was just nice, like a nice little feature in the middle. It broke up the room itself because you can't look from one side to the other too well because obviously all these plants are in the way, and it just adds to that kind of like tropical vibe, that kind of reptile feeling. Even though we know reptiles don't just live in tropical jungles, stereotypically, if it's someone who's not really looked into reptiles themselves, you hear reptile, you think warm, you think jungles, things like that. And anyways, I went back to the exhibits themselves and I wanted them to kind of look like decorated, and I love the fact that some of the parts of the exhibit itself kind of stuck out, because especially this roof bit, it kind of feels like the keepers can open the front glass bit to get in there, and if they need to adjust any of the settings, they could go above the tank and then press them. So it kind of feels, it kind of has like a really cool vibe, the fact that those bits are actually sticking through the walls themselves. So it's like an accidental thing that actually turned out in my favour. And then at the top I decided I was adding more detail. Rather than just having building these enclosures, we need places for the heat to go out, like an AC kind of climate control thing. And then I was like, okay, we've got all these on the roof, but what happens if one of these break or they need like repair? Obviously we need to clean the window in the middle, so I make a walkway for staff to be able to get onto the roof safely without falling through it, and be able to do any maintenance they need to the AC units. So they need to clean the glass, as one of the glass planes somehow cracked, it needs replacing, all that kind of thing. I was putting a lot of storytelling in my head, and I feel like when you add storytelling to a build, it adds a lot more. I look at some of the simple builds, and they are simple by all means, and literally you can see the difference between just a little bit of extra time. I think I spent, I'm trying to think when I started this. I think I started at 10 and I think I finished about half 11. So actually no, it'd been half 9 of us started. I started half 9, finished about half 10ish. So it took a while, even though this is a very small, simple build. I just kept going back, adding details, looking through the list of items, seeing if I could use them in any different way. I really do like this railing, especially for like a staff kind of like railing on a roof. Anyways, we had a bit of the floor showing off, so I thought I'd hide it, make this a little bit pretty of the brickwork, and it kind of hides a few things I didn't want. The bits it doesn't hide, I kind of used again to my advantage as part of the climate control side of things. I added like these little, I can't think of the name right now, I'm going to say grills. I know it's not a grill, it's like a ventilation sort of opening, and placed it on the black bits that were sticking through the wall. So I feel like it kind of adds again a little bit more storytelling, a little bit more of a feature to the whole part of the building itself. I wanted an actual ceiling in there to hide some of the railing bars that were sticking through. So I use this plaster, I place it on block and then I separate it and then drag it down. Anyways, as well, I wanted little screens on top, which you'll see in a bit. I cut some of it out, otherwise this would have been a very long video, especially if I was showing off all the little extra details I was adding to the building on the way. But also these are things you can see like in this video right now, and it's very self-explanatory what I've done, and I don't feel like I needed to show them off, and it helped me like lower the time of the video itself. Obviously the building needed power, so we have this solar panel bit up here, and also gave me the kind of excuse to like instead of making like a ladder to the roof, they've got this ramp which is on this hilly bit, which I'm going to make into like a sort of like staff section later on down the line. But honestly, I had so much fun making this, and the end result of it I feel just looks incredible. Like for me it was kind of like in between trying to make it so it looked cheap in the sense of they don't spend too much money making it, because obviously it's not going to be one of those places that get massive amount of footpath compared to, let's say, a tiger enclosure. So it's kind of like on the scale of it's got what it needs to be, sort of like vibe. Also people who are dedicated to these kind of animals would really love it and would really like it, and would probably visit this and probably spend a fair bit. They could sit in the middle on that little wall there and enjoy looking at the different insects, amphibians and reptiles that are knocking about. But obviously it needs to be like cost effective to the zoo itself. So that's the kind of storytelling I went in there, and I hope you've enjoyed this. Till next time, I'll see you later.